girls in the popular group looked down on the girl from Boudica's mud hut. She was regarded as a non-entity, recalled a classmate. All the social climbing girls, and there were lots of them at Down, thought she was not worth bothering with. Another alum recalled Kate sitting on the stairs of her house crying her eyes out. Head teacher Cameron, who sounds like a corporate version of Roald Dahl's Miss Trunchbull, defended the school in words that made Kate sound like a wet blanket. The girls, she said, were encouraged to play to their strengths. It could be difficult if you were a shrinking violet type. It was so bad that Kate developed stress eczema. Carol and Michael Middleton whipped her out of there fast in the middle of the year. Hello and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, then welcome. I'm Jess Cannell and I would love to earn your subscription today. We have a really fun section today, and the next few episodes, I think, are going to be sort of like insightful, happy episodes with some intrigue, with some stories we've never heard before, and with some color that, unless you are a close royal watcher, you may never have heard before. This chapter is called Enter Kate. William meets an extraordinary, ordinary girl. So that's where we're headed. Before we start that reading, I have two things to share with you. One is that right now, as I am filming this, I'm about to go over 7,000 subscribers. And I feel so grateful this morning. I just was thinking back to when I started doing my read alouds on this channel. And when I began reading, I had barely over 1,000 subscribers just from random videos I had made in the past. And now to see this number, and it's been about 6 months, it just really feels quite exciting to me. I had no idea. I was hoping that there might be, a few hundred people who might be willing to read through interesting books to me. And I had no idea that each of you were going to be part of those who would join me and that we would have such a community, especially in that comment section. I love it. I love interacting with you there. I love learning from you there and getting pushback. And it's just so fun. So I just wanted to say a big thank you. Because I do know that you could use your time any way you choose, and that it is a privilege to have you be here sharing books with me. And so I just want to say thank you to each one of you. And then the other thing that I want to tell you or give you a heads up about is that in a month from now, we are going to be doing about a 2-week section. We are going to wrap up our Look magazine. We have this book by William Manchester that was serialized in Look magazines, and I had all 4 of the printings. This is the 4th one, so we are going to get all the way through that section. We started it in November. We are going to finish up that whole serialized telling of the account of JFK's assassination from start to finish. So be on the lookout for that. During that week, we are also going to go through other Life magazines, other vintage magazines that had to do with the time of the assassination or that can help provide color to us about the JFK assassination. So ready yourself for that. That's coming a month from now. But let's go ahead and get into chapter 12 about Kate. And I do want to make a little note, which is that Catherine has now let us know, when she became the Princess of Wales, they officially let the world know that she wished to be called Catherine. At this time, when this was printed, and when she was going through the years that we are about to walk through, she was known as Kate, Kate with a K. Now, of course, she is Catherine with a C. So just so we're all on the same page, when I call her Kate, I am reading from this book and will probably refer to her even colloquially as Kate during these years. But when I'm talking about the Princess of Wales now, I do strive to say Princess Catherine. So hopefully that's okay to those of you who are, royal watchers and monarchists. I want to be honoring toward them and use the titles that they have stated to the world that they wish to have used, but also during these years she was Kate. In 2011, the question mark over Kate Middleton was whether a girl of such unexalted origins could successfully evolve into a future queen. Now the only question is how the House of Windsor could survive without her. I want to point out this was printed in 2024. Catherine was certainly an established force in the royal family and seen as perhaps the most important woman behind the queen even then. I think most people sort of knew Camilla was there, and even those who wished to honor Camilla knew that she was not in a position of influence of how the royals were going to go near as much as Kate at the time. But now, after 2024 with her health struggles, we have been shown this very thing, that, that the House of Windsor could not survive without Princess Catherine. If there is one cardinal qualification for marrying into the monarchy, it is not beauty, not pedigree, and certainly not outstanding brains. It's resilience. Most of royal life is crushingly dull. It's like being a battery hen in the Waldorf Astoria. I had to look up that little description, a battery hen. But a battery hen is a hen kept for laying eggs in a fancy restaurant. So you think about a back hallway or perhaps out on a little farm, but nearby, there would be hens that were kept for laying eggs so that you had fresh eggs for your fancy restaurant. So it's like being a battery hen in the Waldorf Astoria. Interesting. Prince Charles always used to despair that he knew exactly what he would be doing a year in advance. It's a funny perspective of like my life is planned out to the minute very far in advance. There's nothing new that I get to do. Without resilience, it's impossible to retain individual identity against the inexorable palace machine. Prince Philip had to fight the men in gray suits who tried to marginalize his influence on the Queen. He kept sane by carving out a hyperactive commitment to causes and interests of his own. His success as a consort was all the more remarkable given his red-blooded masculinity and the fragility of his own dispersed family, who offered so little support. The longevity of Camilla Parker Bowles's relationship with the Prince of Wales is sustained by her dauntless self-assurance. She was insulated from court intrigue by the loyalty and discretion of the Shand clan. She has a robust core, formed by the consistency of parental love in her early life, on which she knew she could always fall back. Diana never had that support from her dysfunctional family, and we see how vulnerable it made her. She was always casting around for new messiahs. Prince William knew all this well. Some might even say harrowingly well. The drama and heartbreak of the past was an imprint on his soul, not just his mother's shocking death, but all that followed and preceded it. The ugliness of his parents' divorce, the river of sleaze fed by leaky servants and hangers-on, the reckless spinning of the media by both parents, not to mention the jealousies and pettiness of the palace anthill. It's why he later would urge his younger brother to wait before he rushed to marry. That advice has been proven quite wise, hasn't it? Just take a little time. See how she does with this whole palace machine business before you make it official, Harry. William made his own bride, Kate Middleton, wait and wait and wait before his cautious nature had assessed she was truly a woman of strength who could carry the royal burden. Like Diana, Kate is unexpectedly tall. But unlike Diana, Kate's charm is less about dazzle and more about sheen. The glossy lights in that swingy, concher-colored hair, the subtle polish of impeccable grooming, the luster of her smiling, green hazel eyes. No one can quite figure out what she's really thinking. She exudes honest intelligence without being threateningly bookish. a desire to support with a strong sense of self, an ability to win the room without upstaging her husband. It's as if she were designed to be the blessed obverse of Diana. That is an interesting thought by Tina Brown for us here, that she is the obverse. That instead of the previous Prince of Wales having to be embarrassed and angry because he was being upstaged by his bride, which he was, people wanted to see her and they stopped caring about him. She had this glisten, Diana did, that made every eye turn toward her, whereas he had always been the person that they had photographed and wanted to see. He was kind of old news by the time Diana came along. And with Kate, there is this glimmer and beauty that she has, and yet she doesn't upstage her husband. And she is honest. She is forthright. She does support, and yet she's not simply a fading, wallflower. She has a wonderful sense of herself and balance to her that does seem well suited in every regard. And I'm not saying anything new. I know every royal commentator seems to notice that she seems to do a better job being a royal than many who were born to the task. As a story, the Middletons' family's steady striving and incremental social advancement is too dogged and upstanding for Dickens. Dickens's heroines were, for the most part, sweet airheads, victims, or what was once called tarts with a heart. George Eliot's women, by contrast, were too complicated and reflective. Tina Brown looks at an author that I'm not familiar with, Trollope, and says that his women are more like the character that Kate Middleton exhibits. She describes it this way. In any social situation, she exhibits an easy human engagement that projects the bourgeois virtues of sympathy and comforting common sense. She's a woman who leaves a glow behind her when she works a room. That is so true. As you watch rooms where she enters, it is like everyone is alert with this joyful delight, and it doesn't matter whether they're just before they've talked to her or during their visit with her, or now they've been passed and she's just talking with somebody else, and they are just so happy to just be around her. And I think some of that is just the royal glow that anyone would have. But in my mind, I'm contrasting it with if you watched the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary, or I don't know what you'd call it, a sort of reality diary show. There was that time when Harry and Meghan went to visit with the troops. And do you remember everybody's in masks and there's no like everybody's standing up, but there's not like, ooh, it's just like everybody's just like looking at them. And even when they are talking, there's just this awkwardness hanging in the air. Even though Harry is a former serviceman, there's just this odd tenor to the room. Never with Kate. Every time you see her on an engagement, everyone is joyful. Everyone, it's not a flirtatious look or a wowed, amazed, like bowled over, can't believe it look like Diana might have sometimes gotten. If you look at the Queen, people, when they wait to talk to her, back when she was with us, yes, there was excitement. Of course there was excitement, but also there's just a sobriety and a seriousness. But I feel like with Kate, there's this joyful seriousness that they bring. I don't know, let me know in the comments, but I think she has a natural gift for connecting with people in person in a way that leaves everyone like this, leaving a glow behind her. I think that's entirely true. The Middletons of the Manor, Berkshire, are the bedrock of Kate's aspirational resolve. You only have to look at their real estate trajectory over the past 30 years to see the resolute rise in their social status. They moved from a 4-bedroom semi-detached Victorian in the South End village of Bradfield, 48 miles west of London, to the comfortably rambling 5-bedroom, 3-reception room Oak Acre in the Berkshire village of Bucklebury, to the creme de la creme site of the manor on Pease Hill up the road, built on 18 acres of land prized out of monks in Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. There is a handy, separate accommodation space for Royal Police Protection officers when required. Bucklebury has the kind of leafy country charm of BritBox TV detective mysteries, with an ancient village church, pub, and quaint creeper-covered cottages. Until the age of 13, Kate lived in the first of the 3 Middleton homes, the small semi-detached in Bradfield. An estate agent in 2011 noted that we would have to go back as far as Boudica's mud hut to find a more modest house that was once home to a future queen. Her parents' move to the manor in 2012 coincided with the Cambridges' residency of their current 20-room, 4-story apartment at Kensington Palace. I believe they've moved now, actually. I think they moved possibly sometime during COVID. But yeah, they were at this time at Kensington Palace. And I just want to say, to note, whenever they use the word apartment here, it always makes me laugh, because in America, apartment always means just a little apartment, but it still is nothing fancy. It's nothing very special. And here, 20-room, 4-story apartment at Kensington Palace. It's just a funny use of the word to think of, the Prince and Princess of Wales, or then the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, residing in an apartment. Kate's father, the mild-mannered Michael Middleton, is a former British Airways flight dispatcher. The Middletons' position in civic society was sealed by a marriage into the Lupton wool and textile manufacturing fortune in the 1920s. That 60 years later left enough of a trust fund to send Kate and her 2 siblings to expensive private schools. Michael Middleton is a man of open countenance, handsome, silver-haired demeanor, genial good judgment, and watertight discretion. When he speaks of his 3 children, Kate, Pippa, and James, he does so as if there's no difference between them. My daughter murdered me at tennis this weekend, leaving which daughter unsaid. I like that. I think, this characteristic is what I think we'll read in this book, but what I have also heard drew William to trust their family, not just Kate, that he admired these characteristics of just being a man of good sense and good judgment and approachable but discreet, and even this of not differentiating between your daughter who will be queen and your daughter that you also love. They're both your daughters, and so just is very sweet. Kate's mother, Carol, is acknowledged by all as the dynamo in the family. She's the daughter of a sales assistant who met Michael when he worked as a member of the ground staff at British European Airways, and she was an air stewardess. She married up and was a hard worker who used to perfect her delivery of passenger announcements by playing them back on tape. Her origins are scrappy working class, a family of strivers who moved to West London from the mining community of Durham. Carol was raised in a council flat in Southall. Is it Southall or Southall? I don't know. Southall, I guess. A suburban London district now known as Little Punjab. There was always a natural, rangy style to Carol Middleton. She's a slim, vivacious brunette with elegant legs that are sometimes encased in jeans tucked into knee-length riding boots. A comfortable marriage didn't mute Carol's drive. She became a kitchen table entrepreneur when she was pregnant with James, her youngest, stuffing children's party bags and selling them by mail order in a business she christened Party Pieces. She is one of those managerial mothers who have figured out how to be both warmly maternal and successful with a career. Through strategic business growth, Michael was able to quit his job, and he joined her efforts to scale a business now reportedly valued at over £30 million. She was famous for the toughness of her negotiating skills. Carol was a self-made millionaire by the time she was in her 30s, hardly typical for a young mother in the home counties in the 1980s. The children were always incorporated into her working life. She never missed a school function or seemed overly stressed by concerns about work-life balance. The Middleton parents showed up at all school sports events, bearing an expensive picnic, and cheering for their daughters' teams. That's really special. You see in this just a stability that is the thing that William needed, longed for, never really had. He did have engaged parents, and yet they were each separately engaged with him in their own ways. And yes, Diana showed up for school events, and Prince Charles took them for vacations and was reportedly very playful and enjoyed his sons in his way. But this steady, year after year, parents showing up both together for their children is a different model than what William received. Of course, we all know that. But it is stark to read about it here on the heels of our last discussions of Diana's inconstancy, we'll call it, and even disappointing behavior, and Charles's disappointing interviews, and both of them prioritizing their own message, prioritizing, shoring up their own reputation, which their interviews didn't even accomplish, but they prioritized those things over the steady showing up for their children. And this must get at the heart of what initially struck William as so very different from his own experience. Once the Middleton girls had been dispatched to glossy, upmarket co-ed schools like the small country prep St. Andrews in Pangbourne, and then as boarders at Marlborough College in Wiltshire, a collision between Kate and Prince William at sporting events or school dances would not have been noteworthy. Many of the elite girls' schools socialized with Eton. Kate did get a glimpse of the 9-year-old prince when he came from Ludgrove for a hockey match against St. Andrews School. The breathless press later tried to reproduce a Diana-like narrative of the 10-year-old Kate pining for her prince forever after. But Kate brushed that off at the engagement interview. She said her heart had yearned for the Levi's guy on a poster in her dorm room, not William. Marlborough was the making of Kate. Perched over acres of rolling downs on the outskirts of a particularly beautiful market town in Wiltshire, its 18th century red brick architecture and Hogwarts-like chapel exudes moneyed substance. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my chickens are cackling now, and it's because we're suddenly having enough light that they have begun laying again. So now we're getting a few eggs a day, which, if you don't know, in America, the prices for eggs have gone through the roof because there was a big culling of like hundreds of millions of chickens, I don't know, maybe even 5 or 6 months ago, that now is showing up in a reduced quantity of eggs. And so our egg prices have just skyrocketed. So these are the sounds of what a millionaire sounds like, guys, is cackling hens laying their 3 or 4 eggs for me this morning. Well, Marlborough's vigorous atmosphere buoyed Kate after 2 tearful terms at Downhouse, a mean girl school in Berkshire. Downhouse was a vat of boiling estrogen. Eating disorders were so common, girls had to smoke in the lavatories to conceal the smell of sick. Ew. One alum recalled in the Daily Mail some of the seniors rugby tackling her when she came out of the shower, pinning her down, taking her towel, and spraying her groin with blue hairspray. Then they threw her out into the corridor naked. A former student said, "Girls can be very cruel. You have to remember it is in the middle of nowhere, up on a hill. There's nowhere to run, no way to let off steam or get away." Kate was shy, stringy, and taller than her peers. She was a day student in a predominantly boarding environment, and starting at 13, 2 years later than many of her classmates. So she's at Downhouse, and it's normally a boarding school, but she is not a boarder. She is a day student. So she already has that distinction of everyone else is around each other 24 hours a day. They work out their stuff throughout the day, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but you are other. You are not in that group. And then you are entering 2 years after everyone else has already formed the group, after the normal entrance time. And since we've been talking about the chickens, let's go ahead and go with that. They had already established their pecking order at this school. You enter 2 years later and everybody already knows where you fit. And yes, while there is a disadvantage to being on the lower rungs, at least you know where you stand and you don't have to keep fighting over it constantly. Nobody expects you to go from here to here once the pecking order is established. Now, there might be little mini infights or whatever, and yes, it's worse to be at the bottom of the social status. I don't mean that there would not be any bullying or any teasing. Of course there would be, but the pecking order is at least established. And when you enter in to that sphere, and then you're not one of the full boarding students, that just would put Kate in a very awkward position. The mean girls in the popular group looked down on the girl from Boudica's mud hut. She was regarded as a non-entity, recalled a classmate. All the social climbing girls, and there were lots of them at Down, thought she was not worth bothering with. Another alum recalled Kate sitting on the stairs of her house crying her eyes out. Head teacher Cameron, who sounds like a corporate version of Roald Dahl's Miss Trunchbull, defended the school in words that made Kate sound like a wet blanket. The girls, she said, were encouraged to play to their strengths. It could be difficult if you were a shrinking violet type. It was so bad that Kate developed stress eczema. Carol and Michael Middleton whipped her out of there fast in the middle of the year. Well, Kate got her game back at Marlborough. She doesn't have the bitch gene you need to be a player at a single-sex school. She became joint captain of the tennis team and a star at hockey, and she shone at swimming and netball. She was outstanding at high jump. Interestingly, listen to this. I don't think there's a photo of this unless my sleuthing skills just aren't that good. If you are able to find a photo, I would love to see it. But she won a Duke of Edinburgh's award for community work and an expedition that was a 4-day hike in the pouring rain. What could be better training for holidays at Balmoral? When she received her award at Buckingham Palace, she was unaware she was shaking hands with her children's future great-grandfather. Isn't that special? So she met the Duke of Edinburgh at Buckingham Palace long before she was ever anything to William. I would love to have a photo of that. I could not find one. If you can, I would be delighted if you would link it in the comments. Her looks had blossomed by the age of 16 as a sleek Kate butterfly emerged from the chrysalis. She lost her braces and returned from a hockey trip to Argentina after her GCSEs, a raging beauty. GCSEs are something we don't have in America. For my American listeners, it's sort of like tests that you take in high school that prove that you've learned certain subjects. Those of you who are British citizens can tell if I'm saying something quite not right. But it's sort of like you've passed and you have an accreditation of sorts that tells future colleges and future folks who might be interested in your career, I believe, how you did in regard to each subject. Academically, she was unflashily bright. She won 2 A's and a B in her A-level exams. In her senior year, she was chosen to be head of house and was voted person most likely to be loved by everybody in the 2000 yearbook. On Marlborough Prize Day, she bobbed up and down so often for awards that she had to give up and remained on stage with a bashful smile. So on the prize day, when they were giving out all the awards, she was winning so many awards and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down that she finally just had to bashfully just stand on the stage and keep receiving the various awards. That is someone who's well-rounded and well-liked and sounds like has a humility about her. She now ran with the Marlborough chapter of the Glossy Posse, well-born Gloucestershire girls who still are members of her most intimate circle. 2 of her closest girlfriends, Amelia Derlinger, now a godmother to Prince George, and Alice St. John Webster, moved in William's circles. The education that the Middletons paid so much money for was laying the ground for her social quantum leap. In 1999, when Kate was 17, Amelia Derlinger asked her to a house party also attended by William, without any recorded spark. It's as if they were circling each other and logging up points of future attraction. Kate had a couple of crushes on boys and a romance with the handsome captain of the rugby team, but she retained a princessly reserve noted by her peers. She rarely got drunk. Hers was quite an old-fashioned approach, especially at Marlborough, where half of the pupils were already having sex, one of her schoolmates has said. Although she had a couple of very innocent snogs, she just wasn't willing to experiment like other girls. I got the distinct impression that Catherine wanted to save herself for someone special. Her younger sister, Pippa, arrived on a sports scholarship in Kate's second year. They were billeted in the same house and, like William and Harry, shared many of the same friends. Sharper than Kate academically, and also an athletic star, Pippa exhibited some of the drive and vivacity of her mother. Only a year apart, there was a tiny whiff of rivalry between the beautiful sisters, reminiscent of the American Bouviers, Jackie Kennedy and Lee Radziwill. Though Kate was an outstanding member of the hockey team at Marlborough, it was Pippa who was team captain. It's funny. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a mother of 9, and 8 of those are sons. And we have commented before many times, we actually have sort of like 4 pairs of best friends. And then our daughter, she falls after the first pair. But, you know, watching each set of boys and the ways that they each sharpen each other has been so interesting as a mother. But I think that would be interesting with daughters, you know, especially there's a different thing with girls, and I haven't gotten to see that because I've only had the one. So it's interesting to hear it described. But things like their intensity, their academic ability versus sports ability versus social, you know, it's just fun to watch for me, each pairing of my boys and how they sharpen each other and irritate each other and make each other better in a lot of ways. It's just fascinating. Pippa's social ascent seems more calculated than Kate's. Later at Edinburgh University, she shared an apartment with 2 boys whose fathers were dukes. As soon as Pippa arrived at Edinburgh, she was assiduous about joining the right social circle, one alum has said. She was charming about it, but quite ruthless in cultivating the right friends. In 2017, she married 41-year-old James Matthews, a rich hedge fund manager and heir to the Scottish feudal title of Laird of Glenafric. Pippa further evened up the ledger by swiftly producing 2 picturesque children. Hand it to Carol Middleton. Her girls have done well. It's unlikely Kate would be where she is today without her mother's canny help in negotiating a royal romance. Carol Middleton is usually characterized as a cross between Jane Austen's Mrs. Bennet and the sitcom social climber Hyacinth Bucket, who answers the phone, "The Bouquet residence." Neither model is right. Carol has considerable strategic flair. I want to point you guys to an article that just came out by the Daily Mail's Richard Eden. Some people say it's a bit gleaming, a bit over the top, but he actually did an interview with Carol Middleton for her 70th birthday. And that's a new article that has just come out this last week, and it's fascinating. And it's about this very topic of how much of a hand did she actually have in priming the pump or preparing her daughter to be potentially pursued by Prince William. So if you're interested, you might want to go look that up because it is a wonderful article. It's relatively short, but he's done a specific interview with her. And it's a good little look at this topic. Carol's fingerprints are all over Kate's first move on the royal chessboard. When the news was announced in 2000 that Prince William would be spending his university years at the small Scottish University of St. Andrews, Kate suddenly bailed out of Edinburgh University, 50 miles away, and reapplied at St. Andrews. Andrew Neal, former rector at St. Andrews, told me it is not uncommon for students to apply for both universities and decide at the last minute, often depending on where friends are going. But Kate's 2 best friends, Amelia and Alice, had applied to Edinburgh too. The trio had already found lodgings to share. Kate had worked hard at Marlborough for her A-level exams and achieved the high grades that qualified her for her first choice, Edinburgh, which Pippa and James later attended. So Tina Brown is making all the case for why it made sense for Kate to go. Her siblings ended up going there. She had only applied there and gotten accepted and had living arrangements planned with her two best friends. So everything seemed lined up. The two Scottish universities couldn't be more different. Edinburgh has a humming city and festival life and a stellar reputation in art history versus the romantic seclusion of the medieval St. Andrews campus. It was not Kate's style to blow off something she had worked so hard to achieve, then blithely take a gap year and reapply to somewhere else the exact opposite in ambiance. Carol was the chancer in the family, not Kate. If you got a place at Edinburgh, you'd hang on to it, unless Oxford or Cambridge cropped up, a distinguished Scottish editor told me. You would only sacrifice that place for St. Andrews for one of the following reasons. A, there was a course at St. Andrews which offered exactly what you wanted and was not available at Edinburgh. Or B, you heard that the heir to the throne was going to St. Andrews and you thought... So, yeah. Clearly, Tina Brown does not agree with the new article from Richard Eden. She thinks there was intent there, and there very well may have been. It sounds as if there was some purposeful footing happening. Kate spent half her gap year attending the Italian and art history courses at the British Institute of Florence. She stayed in an apartment for 3 months in the center of town with her cousin, Lucy Middleton. Over dinner one night, when the Middleton parents visited, a friend recorded Carol marveling to the waiters about her daughter's appearance, her natural bloom, that luxurious mane of burnished brown hair. "Look at my English Rose. Isn't she so beautiful?" Now on course, Kate had a Zelig-like ability to keep appearing on the edges of William's life. Even the 10-week Outbound-like program she joined after Florence, supporting sustainable international development in Chile, was the very one that William had just completed. It was an earnest, character-building expedition, very hard to get into without creds like the Duke of Edinburgh's award, and the ability to personally raise £3,000 to be admitted. The challenge demanded 3 weeks of wilderness trekking, and a spell helping to build a new fire station for an impoverished community. Kate was rated one of the fitter and stronger members of the group. Others say she always looked good and displayed a notable lack of drama. You know, this part of her character, I think it's the part of her character that has made each of her on-taking of roles as a dating partner that we will get to read about, as a wife, as a mother, as a royal. I think the reason she's successful is because of this characteristic right now, that she can work hard, she can put her head down, she's earnest, but also there's a lack of drama. And we all know, like from interacting with people in our lives, that when someone is constantly swirling with drama or leaves a bad taste in your mouth, you do kind of steer clear of that person and you don't really view them well. We don't hear those kinds of stories in Kate's past. Rather than contrasting her with any other person who might be in your mind and in my mind, I'm just going to keep right on going talking about Kate. But this characteristic of a lack of drama is so valuable. It's so critical, and it is part of her sheen. Well, I think we'll stop there. There is more to be read for sure, and we probably have at least a couple more episodes specifically about Kate before we get to their little magical wedding. So, but look, you guys, we are almost halfway. What a good job we're doing. I hope you're enjoying this story. Let me know in the comments what stood out to you. What do you notice about Kate, her background, her family life? Share in the comments. I want to invite you, the next episode that we're going to have, we are going to go through 2 magazines that are related to some of the recent news that's going on in America. One is we are going to go through this Time booklet about Martin Luther King Jr., his life, his legacy, and we're going to get boned up about the details of his assassination as we prepare for whatever news may be coming out 45 days hence or so. If you're not aware, President Trump signed that executive order that makes it so that 15 days from his signing, the Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General have to present a plan to him of a timeline by which they will release all of the currently classified JFK files. So they have to present a plan. There may be an order of release. There may be batches. We don't quite know. That's what we're waiting on right now. That plan will be presented to him this week, but we don't know whether we will be informed about that plan until it starts to be carried out. I don't understand fully what we will know about that process. And then also, they have been given, those same two people, the DNI and the AG, have been given the task of 45 days from the executive order, releasing a plan for declassifying the files related to these two assassinations. And so we have spent a lot of time on this channel talking about the JFK assassination, and we will. You heard my plans for that. But I don't know as much about Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, nor Robert F. Kennedy's assassination. So the next two episodes will be these two time booklets where we will go through together, read about their lives, get a sense of their significance. We certainly won't get through the entire booklet, but I will choose some relevant portions. And then the thing I'm going to focus on is making sure that you and I are in possession of the basic facts that are known about each of these assassinations, so that as we go into the time when the documents would be released, we have that basis of here's what we've been told or what the official story has been for these number of years. So I hope you will come and join me on those later this week. You guys have a great day. Thanks for coming by and spending time reading through this book with me. I love going through it with you, and I hope you'll come back soon. Bye.